Dear listener, welcome to another tale of mystery and intrigue in the Hercule Poirot Story Podcast. Tonight, we invite you to step into the opulent world of Ashford Manor, a grand estate nestled in the misty hills of Kent, where the air is thick with the scent of exotic orchids and the whispers of secrets. It is the 1930s, a time of elegance and enigma, where the rain falls softly upon the glass panes of a magnificent conservatory, and a shadow of death looms within. Prepare yourself for a puzzle most perplexing, as the great detective Hercule Poirot unravels the case of killer in the Orchid Conservatory. Can you, dear listener, spot the clues before Poirot reveals all? Settle in, sharpen your little gray cells, and let us begin. Chapter 1. The Invitation to Ashford Manor. Narrator, warm, measured, with a hint of intrigue. Dear listener, picture, if you will, a misty evening in the rolling hills of Kent, England, in the autumn of 1932. The air is cool, laden with the scent of damp earth and fading roses, as a horse-drawn carriage sways gently along a winding path toward Ashford Manor. This grand estate, a monument to Old English opulence, stands silhouetted against the twilight, its ivy-clad walls and towering chimneys whispering tales of wealth and secrets. Tonight, its famed Orchid Conservatory, a glass cathedral of exotic blooms, is the stage for a gathering that will soon turn deadly. Within this carriage sits a man of singular distinction, a figure whose name is synonymous with the unraveling of mysteries. Hercule Poirot, the great detective, whose little gray cells are already stirring in anticipation of the puzzle to come. Sound effects. The carriage slows, hooves clattering to a stop. A soft creak as the door opens, and the murmur of voices from within the manor. Poirot steps onto the gravel drive, his polished shoes gleaming faintly in the lantern light. His mustache, impeccably groomed, twitches slightly as he surveys the scene. The manor's windows glow with golden light, casting mahogany panels and portraits of stern-faced Ashford ancestors. Guests, dressed in the finest silks and tailored suits of the 1930s, mingle with practiced ease, their laughter tinged with the restraint of high society. Poirot, his keen eyes darting from face to face, takes note of the key players in this unfolding drama. There is Lady Eleanor Ashford, the host's wife, a statuesque woman in a sapphire gown, her smile radiant but her eyes distant, as if guarding a private sorrow. Beside her stands Dr. Victor Hammond, a botanist of some repute, his thin frame fidgeting as he clutches a glass of sherry, his gaze flickering nervously toward the conservatory doors. Miss Clara Beaumont, a young heiress with auburn curls and a sharp, inquisitive stare, hovers near the fireplace, her laughter a touch too bright. And then there is Mr. Thomas Ridley, the estate's manager, a man of stern demeanor, his broad shoulders squared as he oversees the staff with military precision. Poirot to himself softly. Each face, it tells a story, non? But which of these stories hides the shadow of a crime? Sound effects. A glass clinking as a toast is proposed, followed by polite applause. Lord Reginald Ashford, the evening's host, steps forward to address the assembly. A man in his late 50s, with silver hair and a commanding presence, he exudes the confidence of one accustomed to wealth and influence. His passion for orchids, a pursuit that has made him a legend among horticulturists, is evident in the pride that lights his features as he speaks of his collection. He gestures toward the conservatory, its glass walls visible through an arched doorway, where shadows of exotic blooms dance in the candlelight. Lord Reginald, jovial with a hint of pride. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we gather not merely to dine and converse, but to witness the unveiling of a treasure, the Orchis mortifera, a rare orchid from the jungles of South America, a bloom as beautiful as it is dangerous. Join me, after supper, for a tour of my conservatory, where nature's artistry awaits. Sound effects, murmurs of excitement, the rustle. Enigmatic. Mademoiselle, the orchid. She is like a mystery, beautiful on the surface, but her roots, they may hide something far less charming. Tell me, what is it you suspect? Miss Beaumont's eyes gleam with mischief, but before she can elaborate, a servant spills a glass of wine, drawing a sharp rebuke from Mr. Ridley. The manager's voice, though controlled, carries an edge that silences the table momentarily. Poirot's gaze lingers on Ridley, noting the man's clenched jaw and the way his hand grips the edge of the table. The meal progresses, course after course, but the atmosphere grows heavier, as if the storm gathering outside the manor mirrors the tension within. Sound effects, thunder rumbling in the distance, the clink of silverware, and a soft cough from a guest. As dessert is served, a delicate lemon soufflé, Lord Reginald rises once more, inviting the guests to the conservatory. The group moves through the arched doorway, the air growing warmer and more humid as they enter the glass enclosure. The conservatory is a marvel, its walls lined with shelves of vibrant orchids in every hue, crimson, violet, and snowy white. Vines trail from hanging baskets, and the faint trickle of a fountain adds a soothing note to the scene. Yet, Poirot's attention is drawn to the Orchis mortifera, its deep purple petals glowing under a glass dome at the center of the room. Dr. Hammond, hovering nearby, explains its properties in a hushed tone. Dr. Hammond, nervous but eager. This orchid, Mr. Poirot, is a rarity. Its sap, when distilled, can produce a toxin so potent that a single drop could, well, let us say it is not a plant to be handled carelessly. Poirot, raising an eyebrow. A poison, you say? Most interesting, doctor. And who, pray, has access to this dangerous beauty? Dr. Hammond falters, his eyes darting to Lady Eleanor, who stands apart, gazing at the orchid with an unreadable expression. Poirot notes the exchange, his mind cataloging every gesture, every glance. The group despair, unmistakable to Poirot's trained senses. The guests gasp, some stepping back, others frozen in shock. Lady Eleanor sways, clutching a nearby table for support, while Dr. Hammond kneels beside the body, his hands trembling as he checks for a pulse. Dr. Hammond, he's dead. Poison, I'd wager. But how? When? Poirot steps forward, his demeanor calm but his eyes blazing with intensity. He kneels beside the body, noting the faint froth at Lord Reginald's lips and the telltale scent of the toxin. The conservatory, moments ago a haven of beauty, now feels like a gilded cage, its occupants trapped in a web of suspicion. Poirot rises, his gaze sweeping over the assembled guests, each face a mask of fear, guilt, or calculation. Poirot, firm, commanding. Mes amis, do not move. A crime has been committed, and the killer, they are among us. Hercule Poirot will find the truth. For the little gray cells, they never fail. Sound effects, murmurs of shock, the distant wail of wind, and the soft drip of water from the fountain. As the rain begins to fall harder outside, the conservatory grows silent, save for the pounding of hearts and the weight of unspoken secrets. The stage is set, the players assembled, and Hercule Poirot, with his unparalleled mind, begins to unravel the mystery of the killer in the Orchid Conservatory. Dear listener, what clues have you spotted in this tangled web? The journey has only begun. Chapter 2. The Discovery in the Conservatory. Narrator, urgent with a somber tone. Dear listener, the opulent tranquility of Ashford Manor has been shattered. In the heart of the Orchid Conservatory, where moments ago the air was thick with the perfume of exotic blooms, a grim scene now unfolds. Lord Reginald Ashford, the esteemed host and master of this grand estate, lies lifeless beside his prized Orchis mortifera, a glass of spilled wine seeping into the Lord Reginald, as if unsure whether to touch him. Miss Clara Beaumont, the young heiress, remains near the shattered glass, her auburn curls framing a face now drained of its earlier mischief. Mr. Thomas Ridley, the estate's stern manager, stands at the edge of the group, his arms crossed, his jaw tight, as if restraining a storm of his own. Poirot, calm, authoritative, with a precise French accent. Mes amis, do not touch anything, I implore you. This is a scene of crime, and every detail, it is precious to Hercule Poirot. We must preserve the evidence, for the truth, it is here, waiting to be uncovered. Sound effects. A faint rustle of fabric as guests shift uncomfortably. The distant rumble of thunder. Poirot kneels beside Lord Reginald, his movements deliberate, his eyes scanning the body with clinical precision. The victim's face is contorted in a final grimace, his lips tinged with a faint froth, and his hand clutches at the air as if grasping for life. The spilled wine, its crimson stain spreading like blood on the stone, carries that unmistakable almond-like scent, a hallmark of poison, Poirot notes. He lifts the broken glass carefully, holding it to the light, observing the residue within. His mustache twitches, a sign that his little gray cells are already at work, piecing together the puzzle. Poirot, to himself, softly. A poison, swift and silent. But how was it delivered, and by whose hand? The wine. It is the key, n'est-ce pas? Sound effects. The soft clink of glass as Poirot sets it down, a servant's hurried footsteps approaching. A local doctor, Dr. Percival Gray, summoned from the nearby village, arrives breathless, his coat damp from the rain. He kneels beside Poirot, confirming what the detective already suspects. Lord Reginald has been poisoned, likely by a fast-acting toxin. The doctor's face is grim as he rises, addressing the gathered guests. Dr. Gray, grave, professional. And the soft hum of nervous whispers. Poirot begins his examination of the conservatory, moving with the precision of a conductor orchestrating a symphony. The Orchis mortifera stands under its glass dome, its deep purple petals almost mocking in their beauty. Poirot notes the small table beside it, where Lord Reginald's wine-glass had rested before it fell. A single droplet of wine remains on the table's edge, and Poirot dabs it with a handkerchief, sniffing it carefully. The bitter almond scent is unmistakable, but there is something else. A faint, floral note, almost imperceptible. His eyes narrow as he glances at the orchid. Poirot, musing. The orchid, she is more than a bystander, perhaps. A poison derived from her essence? It is possible, no? Sound effects. The rustle of leaves as Poirot brushes past a vine. The faint trickle of the fountain. Poirot turns his attention to the guests, each one a study in human emotion. Lady Eleanor, now seated on a wicker chair, clutches a lace handkerchief, her eyes darting toward the conservatory's entrance as if expecting rescue or escape. Dr. Hammond, pacing near a shelf of orchids, mutters to himself, his fingers twitching as he adjusts his spectacles. Miss Beaumont, her composure returning, watches Poirot with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension, as if weighing her own role in this drama. Mr. Ridley remains by the door, his posture rigid, his gaze fixed on the detective as if challenging his authority. Poirot approaches Lady Eleanor, his demeanor gentle but probing. He notes the faint tremor in her hands, the way her eyes avoid the body of her husband. Her grief seems genuine, yet there is a reserve, a wall of restraint that intrigues him. Poirot, kindly but with a hint of steel. Madam Ashford, my condolences for your loss. But I must ask, when did you last speak with your husband this evening? And what was his state of mind? Lady Eleanor, voice trembling, earlier distress. Miss Beaumont, softly, with a hint of defiance. You're looking for a killer, Mr. Poirot, but you won't find one in me. I was admiring the orchids when it happened. I saw nothing, heard nothing, until the scream. Poirot smiling faintly. Mademoiselle, the eyes, they see much, even when they claim otherwise. Perhaps you will recall a detail, a small thing, that will aid Poirot. Sound effects. A clock chiming in the distance, the soft patter of rain slowing. Poirot steps back, surveying the conservatory once more. He notices a small vial, barely visible, tucked behind a cluster of orchids near the Orchis mortifera. He retrieves it with a handkerchief, holding it to the light. The liquid inside is clear, but the faint floral scent matches the note he detected in the wine. He slips the vial into his pocket, his mind racing with possibilities. Was the poison prepared in advance? Was it an act of impulse or calculation? And why the Orchis mortifera, a plant so rare and specific? Poirot to the group, commanding attention. Mes amis, this is no accident. A poison, derived perhaps from the very orchid Lord Reginald so cherished, has claimed his life. Each of you was here. Each of you had opportunity. But the motive, it is hidden, like the roots of these orchids. Poirot will find it, and the killer will be revealed. Sound effects. Gasps, a chair creaking as someone shifts, the faint hum of the fountain. The guests exchange uneasy glances, their alibis untested, their secrets unspoken. The conservatory, once a haven of beauty, now feels like a stage where masks are slipping. Poirot's little gray cells are alight, weaving connections between the vial, the wine, and the nervous glances of those around him. The police will arrive soon, but Poirot knows the truth lies in the details, the petal out of place, the scent in the air, the flicker of fear in a suspect's eyes. Dear listener, as the storm rages on, what clues have you gleaned from the faint clink of a glass vial being handled carefully, and a low hum of nervous whispers from the gathered guests? Poirot moves with deliberate grace through the conservatory, his polished shoes silent against the stone floor. The air is thick with humidity, the scent of earth and exotic flowers mingling with the faint, acrid trace of the poison that claimed Lord Reginald's life. The Orchis mortifera, its deep purple petals glowing under its glass dome, stands as the silent centerpiece of this grim tableau. Poirot's gaze lingers on the orchid, its beauty a stark contrast to the death it may have inspired. He recalls the small vial he discovered in the previous chapter, tucked behind a cluster of blooms, its contents carrying the same floral note he detected in the spilled wine. The vial, now safely in his pocket, is a clue, but one that raises more questions than answers. Poirot, musing, his voice low and precise. The orchid, she is magnificent, oui, but also treacherous. Like a femme fatale, she lures with beauty, yet her secrets, they are deadly. What role do you play, ma chère, in this tragedy? Sound effects. The rustle of fabric as Poirot kneels, the soft scrape of a handkerchief against wood. Poirot examines the area around the Orchis mortifera's stand, his fingers brushing the shelf where he found the vial. He notices a faint scratch in the wood, barely visible, as if something heavy had been moved in haste. His eyes narrow as he traces the mark, his mind reconstructing the scene. Was the vial hidden deliberately, or dropped in a moment of panic? He turns his attention to the other orchids, their delicate petals trembling in the faint breeze from an open vent. The conservatory, with its labyrinth of shelves and hanging vines, feels like a puzzle box, each bloom a potential piece of the mystery. Sound effects. A faint creak as Poirot opens a glass case, the trickle of water from the fountain. Poirot approaches Dr. Victor Hammond, botanist's flushed cheeks, the sweat beading on his brow despite the cool evening. He files away the reaction, turning to Lady Eleanor Ashford, who stands near the fountain, her sapphire gown pooling around her like water. Her face is a mask of composure, but her hands betray her, twisting the lace handkerchief into tight knots. Poirot, gentle but insistent. Madame, you are familiar with this conservatory, oui? You must have spent many hours here with your husband, admiring his collection. Did you ever see this vial, or notice anything unusual about the Orchis mortifera? Lady Eleanor, voice soft but strained. I came here often, yes, but only to keep Reginald company. The orchids were his passion, not mine. I know nothing of poisons or vials, Mr. Poirot. I swear it. Sound effects, a soft sob from Lady Eleanor, the faint clink of her pearl necklace as she adjusts it. Poirot's eyes linger on Lady Eleanor, noting the tremor in her voice, the way her gaze flickers toward the Orchis mortifera before returning to the floor. He senses a truth unspoken, but he does not press her. Not yet. Instead, he moves to Miss Clara Beaumont, who stands near a cluster of crimson orchids, her auburn curls catching the light. Her earlier boldness has returned, though there is a wariness in her eyes as she watches Poirot approach. Miss Beaumont, lightly but with an edge. Mr. Poirot, you seem quite taken with these orchids. Do you think one of them killed Lord Reginald? Or are you looking for a more human culprit? Poirot, smiling faintly. Mademoiselle, the orchid, she is but a tool, perhaps, in the hands of one who knows her secrets. You were here when the tragedy occurred. Did you see anyone near the wine, or perhaps near this orchid, before the scream? Miss Beaumont, hesitating, then firm. I was admiring the flowers, Mr. Poirot, as I told you. I didn't notice anyone tampering with anything. But I did see Dr. Hammond near the Orchis mortifera earlier, and the ground staff have regular access. I ensure no unauthorized visitors enter. If you're suggesting an outsider, Mr. Poirot, I'd say you're barking up the wrong tree. Sound effects. The creak of a door as a servant enters, the faint clatter of a tray. Poirot nods, but his eyes gleam with skepticism. He returns to the Orchis mortifera, lifting the glass dome with care. The orchid's petals seem almost luminescent in the dim light, their beauty masking their potential danger. He examines the soil, noting a faint disturbance, as if something had been buried and then removed. His fingers brush against a small, hard object, a fragment of glass no larger than a pebble, hidden among the roots. He pockets it, his mind racing with possibilities. Could this be part of the vial's cap? Or something else entirely? Poirot to himself softly. A fragment, a clue, a whisper of intent. The conservatory. She holds her secrets tightly. But Poirot, he will coax them out. Sound effects. The soft clink of glass as Poirot secures the fragment, the distant rumble of thunder. The guests, still gathered in the conservatory, grow restless. The police have yet to arrive, delayed by the storm. And the air is thick with unspoken accusations. Poirot senses the weight of their gazes, each suspect wrestling with their own fears and secrets. He decides to test the waters, addressing the group as a whole. Poirot, commanding, his voice ringing clear. Mes amis, the poison that killed Lord Reginald was no accident. It was delivered with precision, with knowledge. The Orchis mortifera, she is the key, perhaps, but the hand that wielded her is among us. I ask you now to consider. What did you see? What did you hear in the moments before the scream? The truth, it is like the orchid's roots, hidden, but not invisible. Sound effects, murmurs of protest, a chair creaking as someone shifts, the faint drip of the fountain. The guests are awake, mes amis. The truth, it will not hide forever. Each of you holds a piece of this puzzle, whether you know it or not. Poirot will find the picture it forms. Sound effects, a sharp gust of wind against the glass, the faint chime of a clock striking the hour. As the storm rages on, the conservatory remains a gilded cage, its occupants trapped in a web of suspicion. Poirot's investigation has only begun, but the clues are mounting. The vial, the glass, the orchid's deadly secret. Dear listener, what have you noticed in this tangled garden of motives? The mystery of the killer in the orchid conservatory grows deeper, and Hercule Poirot is determined to unearth the truth, one petal at a time. Chapter 4. Motives in the Mist. Narrator, measured with an undercurrent of tension. Dear listener, the storm outside Ashford Manor rages on, its howling winds and relentless rain a fitting backdrop to the turmoil within. The conservatory, where Lord Reginald Ashford met his untimely end, has been sealed, its deadly orchids standing as silent witnesses to a crime most foul. Hercule Poirot, the inimitable detective, has gathered the shaken guests in the manor's grand drawing room, a sanctuary of warmth and opulence that belies the cold suspicion now gripping its occupants. The air is heavy with the weight of unspoken truths, And Poirot, with his little gray cells in full motion, prepares to probe the hearts and minds of those who surrounded the victim. In this chapter, motives begin to surface, like shadows emerging from the mist, each one a thread in the intricate web of murder. Sound effects: the snap of a log in the fire, a soft cough, and the rustle of a dress as someone shifts uncomfortably. The drawing room is a study in contrasts. The rich burgundy drapes and polished mahogany furniture exude wealth, yet the faces of the guests reflect unease. Lady Eleanor Ashford sits rigidly on a velvet settee, her sapphire gown now slightly crumpled, her pearl wish him harm. Poirot asks you now to speak plainly. For the truth, it cannot hide from the little gray cells. Sound effects: a sharp intake of breath, the clink of a teacup being set down abruptly. The guests exchange wary glances, the silence stretching taut like a bowstring. Poirot's eyes, sharp and unrelenting, move from face to face, reading the subtle cues of body language: a clenched jaw, an averted gaze, a nervous twitch. He begins with Lady Eleanor, whose composure, though frayed, holds a certain dignity. He approaches her gently, his tone softened but probing. Poirot, kindly but insistent: "Madame Ashford, you were the wife of the victim, the lady of this manor. Tell Poirot, what was the state of your marriage? Was there harmony, or perhaps discord?" Lady Eleanor, voice low, trembling slightly: "Reginald and I, we had our differences, as all couples do. He was consumed by his orchids, spending hours in that conservatory neglecting other matters. Recently he spoke of selling the estate to fund his botanical pursuits. I opposed it. This manor is my home, my legacy, but I loved him, Mr. Poirot. I would never harm him." Sound effects: a soft sob, the rustle of her handkerchief as she dabs her eyes. Poirot nods, his expression unreadable, but his mind catalogues her words. The sale of the estate, a motive rooted in loss of status and security. He turns to Dr. Hammond, whose nervous fidgeting has intensified, his spectacles slipping down his nose as he avoids Poirot's gaze. Poirot, firm but measured: "Dr. Hammond, you are a man of science, a rival, perhaps, to Lord Reginald in the world of botany. Was there jealousy, monsieur? Or perhaps a disagreement over this Orchis mortifera, which you know so well?" Dr. Hammond, stammering, his voice rising: "Jealousy? No, Mr. Poirot. Reginald and I collaborated, shared knowledge. Yes, I envied his collection, but I depended on his patronage. He funded my research, though lately he'd grown reluctant, questioning my methods. But murder had no reason to wish him dead." It's the crackle of the fire, a soft gasp from Lady Eleanor. The revelation of the proposal sends a ripple through the room. Lady Eleanor's eyes narrow, her fingers tightening around her teacup, while Dr. Hammond's head jerks up, as if startled by the news. Poirot's gaze lingers on Miss Beaumont, noting the sincerity in her voice, but also the flicker of unease in her posture. A rejected proposal, a wound to pride, or perhaps a deeper grudge. He turns finally to Mr. Ridley, whose stoic demeanor has not wavered, though his eyes burn with a quiet intensity. Poirot, direct, probing: "Monsieur Ridley, you are the backbone of this estate, the man who keeps its secrets and its accounts. Lord Reginald trusted you, oui? But trust, it can be strained. Were there matters, financial or otherwise, that caused friction between you?" Mr. Ridley, gruff, controlled: "I served Lord Reginald loyally for 20 years. My job was to manage the estate, not to question his decisions. If you're implying I had a hand in this, Mr. Poirot, you're mistaken. My books are clean, my duty clear. The sharp snap of a log in the fire, the distant howl of wind. Poirot's eyes narrow, sensing the steel in Ridley's voice, but also the faint tremor of evasion. Financial irregularities, a motive as old as time. He steps back, addressing the group as a whole, his voice ringing with authority. Poirot, commanding, resolute. Mes amis, the heart of man is a labyrinth, but the truth, it leaves footprints. Each of you has a reason to resent Lord Reginald. A threat to your home, your funding, your pride, or your trust. But which of you turned resentment into murder? Poirot will find out. Murmurs of protest, the clink of a teacup being set down forcefully. The room falls silent, the weight of Poirot's words settling like a fog. He begins to pace, his hands clasped behind his back. Access to the conservatory. Poirot, to himself, softly. The motive, it is the heart of the crime, but the method, it is the hand. Who among them had both the reason and the means? Sound effects. The soft chime of a clock striking 9. The rustle of papers as a servant enters. A servant, pale and trembling, delivers a message. The police are delayed by flooded roads, leaving Poirot as the sole authority for now. The guests shift uneasily, their alibis untested, their motives exposed. Poirot seizes the opportunity to press further, turning to Lady Eleanor once more. Poirot, gentle but relentless. Madame, you say you loved your husband, yet the sale of the estate threatened your world. Did you ever discuss this with anyone? Perhaps someone who shared your fears? Lady Eleanor hesitating, then firm. I spoke to no one, Mr. Poirot. My concerns were private. I tried to reason with Reginald, but he was stubborn. That's all. Sound effects. The faint creak of the settee as she leans back, the crackle of the fire. Poirot's eyes flicker with interest, sensing a half-truth. He turns to Dr. Hammond, whose nervous energy has not abated. Poirot, sharp, direct. Dr. Hammond, you say Lord Reginald questioned your methods. Was there a specific disagreement? Perhaps over the Orcus mortifera or its uses? Dr. Hammond, flustered. He thought my research too risky, said I was reckless. But it was academic, nothing more. I needed his support, not his death. Sound effects. A nervous laugh, the clatter of a spoon dropped on a tray. Poirot's gaze shifts to Miss Beaumont, who has been watching the exchanges with keen interest. He senses her intelligence, her ability to observe without being noticed. Poirot, probing. Mademoiselle, you refused Lord Reginald's proposal, yet you remained close. Did he confide in you about any threats, any enemies? Miss Beaumont, thoughtful, cautious. He mentioned no enemies, Mr. Poirot, exposed the motives, but the killer's identity remains elusive. Each suspect harbors a reason to resent Lord Reginald. But who had the opportunity and the cunning to act? Dear listener, what threads have you spotted in this web of motives? The mystery of the killer in the Orchid Conservatory deepens, and Hercule Poirot is one step closer to unveiling the truth. Chapter 5. The Alibi Puzzle. Narrator. Measured, with a tone of mounting intrigue. Dear listener, The grand halls of Ashford Manor are cloaked in shadow and suspicion, as the storm outside continues its mournful wail. The conservatory, where Lord Reginald Ashford met his tragic end, remains sealed, its orchids standing as silent sentinels over a crime yet unsolved. Hercule Poirot, the master detective, has uncovered motives that weave a tangled web among the guests, each thread laced with resentment, ambition, or fear. Now, in the dimly lit library of the manor, Poirot turns his formidable intellect to the alibis of those present at the moment of murder. The little gray cells are at work, piecing together the timeline of that fateful evening, searching for the crack in the facade through which the truth may slip. The puzzle of alibis is a delicate one, and Poirot knows that even the smallest inconsistency could unravel the killer's carefully laid plans. Sound effects. The soft thud of a book being closed, the faint rustle of papers, and a distant rumble of thunder. Narrator. The library is a haven of quiet, its walls lined with leather-bound tomes and heavy oak shelves, the air scented with old paper and wax polish. A single chandelier casts a warm glow over the room, where Poirot has gathered the suspects once more. Lady Eleanor Ashford sits in a high-backed chair, her sapphire gown now slightly wilted, her fingers nervously twisting a strand of pearls. Dr. Victor Hammond paces near a window, his spectacles glinting as he glances at the rain-smeared glass. Miss Clara Beaumont lounges against a table, her auburn curls catching the light, her eyes sharp with curiosity. Mr. Thomas Ridley stands by the door, his stern demeanor unshaken, though his hands are clasped tightly behind his back. Poirot, at the center of the room, holds a small dinner. I needed a moment's peace. Reginald was so caught up in his orchids, and the guests, they were overwhelming. I came here to read, to collect myself. I heard the scream and rushed to the conservatory. Sound effects. The soft rustle of a dress, the faint clink of her pearls. Narrator. Poirot nods, jotting a note in his book, but his eyes linger on Lady Eleanor's hands, which clutch her pearls a fraction too tightly. He turns to Dr. Hammond, whose pacing has grown more erratic, his fingers twitching as he adjusts his spectacles. Poirot, direct, with a hint of challenge. Dr. Hammond, you are a man of precision, oui? Where were you when Lord Reginald drank the poisoned wine? Your knowledge of the Orchis mortifera makes your movements most interesting to Poirot. Dr. Hammond, stammering, nervous. I was in the study, Mr. Poirot, going over some notes. I'd been discussing the orchid with Reginald earlier, and I needed to check my references. I wasn't in the conservatory when it happened, I swear it. I only returned when I heard Miss Beaumont scream. Sound effects. The shuffle of papers, a nervous cough from Hammond. Narrator. Poirot's mustache twitches, a sign that he has noted the botanist's vague account. The study is adjacent to the conservatory, a mere door away, close enough for opportunity. He turns to Miss Clara Beaumont, who meets his gaze with a boldness that contrasts with the tension in the room. Poirot, smiling faintly. Mademoiselle Beaumont, you were the one to scream, alerting us to the tragedy. Where were you in the moments before? Your eyes, they are sharp. Did they see anything unusual? Miss Beaumont, coolly but with a trace of hesitation. I was in the garden, Mr. Poirot, just outside the conservatory doors. The air inside was so stifling I stepped out for a breath. I was admiring the roses when I heard a commotion and went back inside. That's when I saw him. Sound effects. The faint rustle of leaves, the distant I love to act. He recalls a detail from the chaos of the discovery. A maid, trembling and pale, had mentioned seeing a figure near the conservatory doors moments before the scream. The figure was cloaked in shadow, their identity obscured by the dim light and the storm's distraction. Poirot decides to test this clue, addressing the group as a whole. Poirot, commanding, his voice sharp. Mes amis, a witness claims a figure was seen near the conservatory moments before the tragedy. A figure in shadow, moving with purpose. Does this stir any memories? Speak, for the truth cannot hide from Poirot. Sound effects. Gasps. The rustle of fabric as guests shift, a teacup clinking against a saucer. Narrator. The room grows tense, the ticking clock amplifying the silence. Lady Eleanor's eyes widen briefly, but she says nothing, her fingers tightening around her pearls. Dr. Hammond's pacing stops abruptly, his face paling as he mutters something incoherent. Miss Beaumont's lips part, as if to speak, but she hesitates, her gaze darting to Ridley. The manager remains impassive, though his clenched jaw betrays a flicker of concern. Dr. Hammond, flustered, breaking the silence. I didn't see anyone, Mr. Poirot. I was in the study, as I said. The conservatory doors were closed. I couldn't have seen anything from there. Narrator. Poirot's gaze sharpens, noting the botanist's quick defense. The study's door, he recalls, has a small window overlooking the conservatory entrance, a detail Hammond omitted. He turns to Miss Beaumont, whose earlier boldness has softened into caution. Poirot, gentle but insistent. Mademoiselle, you were in the garden, oui? The conservatory doors, they are glass. Did you see this figure, perhaps, moving in the shadows? Miss Beaumont, hesitating, then firm. I don't know, Mr. Poirot. It was dark, and the rain was heavy. I might have seen someone, but I couldn't say who. I is not far from the conservatory. Did any of your staff report seeing this figure, or anything out of the ordinary? Mr. Ridley, gruff but steady. My staff are trained to focus on their duties, not to gossip. The maid who spoke to you was mistaken, probably saw a shadow from the storm. I saw nothing, and neither did they. Sound effects, the sharp crack of thunder, the ticking clock growing louder. Narrator. Poirot's mustache twitches, a sign that he has caught the scent of evasion. Ridley's dismissal of the maid's account is too quick, too certain. He steps back, surveying the group, his mind reconstructing the timeline. The murder occurred shortly after the guests entered the conservatory, during a toast led by Lord Reginald. The wine, laced with the orchid-derived toxin, was poured from a single decanter, yet no one admits to handling it. The shadowy figure seen by the maid suggests someone moved with purpose, perhaps to tamper with the wine, or to plant the vial Poirot found. Poirot, to himself, softly. An alibi. It is like a house of cards, no? One small push and it collapses. The figure in the shadows, it is the key to this puzzle. Sound effects, the rustle of Poirot's notebook, the faint creak of the library door. Narrator. Poirot closes his notebook, his eyes gleaming with determination. The alibis are shaky, each one close enough to the crime scene to allow opportunity, yet vague enough to obscure the truth. The maid's account of the shadowy figure adds a new layer to the mystery. Someone was there, unseen, in the critical moments before the murder. Was it one of the suspects, or an outsider with access to the conservatory? Poirot recalls the vial, the glass fragment, and the floral scent of the poison, each clue pointing to the Orchis mortifera and the expertise required to wield it. Poirot, to the group, resolute. Mes amis, your alibis. They are like the mist outside. Cloudy, but not impenetrable. Someone among you, or perhaps someone unseen, slipped the poison. Revelation. Dear listener, the storm that batters Ashford Manor has settled into a persistent drizzle, its rhythm a somber backdrop to the unfolding mystery within. The conservatory, where Lord Reginald Ashford met his tragic end, remains a locked vault of secrets, its orchids guarding the truth of a poison most deadly. Hercule Poirot, the master detective, has probed the motives and alibis of the suspects, each one a piece in a puzzle that grows ever more complex. Now, in the shadowed confines of Lord Reginald's study, Poirot seeks the written word, letters, notes, perhaps a confession, that might illuminate the path to the killer. The little gray cells are alight, sifting through the whispers of paper and ink, for in the hidden correspondence of Ashford Manor, the truth may lie waiting. Sound effects. The soft click of a desk drawer opening, the faint rustle of papers being handled, and the low hum of a single lamp casting a warm glow. Narrator. The study is a sanctuary of order, its walls lined with bookshelves filled with botanical journals and ledgers, the air heavy with the scent of aged leather and ink. A large mahogany desk dominates the room, its surface cluttered with papers, a quill pen, and a small framed photograph of Lord Reginald and his orchids. Hercule Poirot stands at the desk, his immaculate suit a stark contrast to the chaos of the evening. His fingers, gloved to preserve evidence, move with precision as he sifts through the documents, his eyes sharp and unyielding. The suspects, still reeling from the scrutiny of their alibis in the library, have been instructed to remain in the drawing room. But Poirot knows that the study holds secrets they could not speak aloud. Poirot, musing, his voice low and precise. The written word, it is a mirror to the soul, no? In these papers, Poirot will find the reflections of motive, of fear, of betrayal. Let us see what Lord Reginald left behind. It pleads for reconciliation after her refusal of Lord Reginald's marriage proposal. The words are heartfelt, expressing gratitude for his kindness, but firmness in her decision to seek love elsewhere. Yet, a postscript catches Poirot's eye. I hope you can forgive me, Reginald. There are things I cannot say, but I wish you well. The vagueness intrigues him, secrets unspoken, perhaps a hint of guilt or regret. Poirot, musing. Mademoiselle Beaumont, your heart is bold, but your words, they hide something. What is it you could not say to Lord Reginald? Sound effects. The soft crackle of paper as Poirot unfolds another letter. The distant patter of rain. Narrator. The third letter is unsigned. Its handwriting blocky and unfamiliar. It is brief, chilling in its brevity. Your secrets will not stay buried. End the sale, or they will be exposed. The paper is creased, as if crumpled in anger before being smoothed out. Poirot's eyes narrow, recognizing the weight of this threat. The mention of the estate's sale aligns with Lady Eleanor's motive, but the anonymity suggests a broader conspiracy. Could this be from Ridley, protecting his own interests, or another player yet unseen? Poirot, thoughtful. A scandal, a threat, a shadow in the words. This letter, it is the key to a deeper truth, none? Sound effects. The soft thud of the letter being placed on the desk. The creak of a floorboard outside the study. Narrator. Poirot pauses, his senses alert to the sound. He moves silently to the door, opening it to find the hallway empty, though a faint draft suggests someone passed by moments ago. He returns to the desk, his mind racing. The letters paint a picture of tension, Hammond's desperation, Beaumont's regret, and an unknown threat tied to the estate's sale. He turns to the ledgers, his eyes gleaming with the thrill of discovery. The letters and the note form a constellation of motives. Hammond's need for funding, Beaumont's unresolved emotions, the anonymous threat, and Ridley's financial irregularities. Each points to the Orchis mortifera and the expertise required to extract its poison. Dr. Hammond's botanical knowledge makes him a prime suspect, but Lady Eleanor's frequent visits to the conservatory and Ridley's access to the estate's resources cannot be ignored. Even Miss Beaumont, with her sharp mind, might know more than she admits. Poirot, resolute. The pen, it is mightier than the sword, but the poison, it is silent and swift. These letters, they are the voices of the guilty, and Poirot will make them sing. Sound effects. The soft click of the hidden compartment closing, the faint chime of a clock striking 11. Narrator. Poirot gathers the letters and the note, slipping them into his pocket beside the vial and glass fragment from the conservatory. He knows the police, still delayed by the storm, will rely on his findings. But he must test these clues against the suspect's alibis. He returns to the drawing room, where the guests sit in uneasy silence, the fire casting long shadows across their faces. Lady Eleanor's eyes are red-rimmed, her composure fraying. Dr. Hammond's nervous twitching has intensified, his spectacles fogging again. Miss Beaumont watches Poirot with a mix of curiosity and wariness, while Ridley's stern gaze follows him like a hawk. Poirot, addressing the group, commanding, "Mes amis, Poirot has found words that speak louder than your voices. Letters, notes, threats. They paint a picture of discord in this manner. Who among you wrote to Lord Reginald, demanding, pleading, or threatening? Speak now, for the truth, it is close." Sound effects. Gasps. The rustle of fabric as Hammond shifts. A teacup clattering against a saucer. Narrator. Dr. Hammond is the first to break the silence, his voice high and defensive. Dr. Hammond, flustered. "I wrote to Reginald, yes, about my expedition. It was a professional matter, nothing more." For his scrutiny. Poirot, insistent. "Madam, your husband wrote of confronting someone. Did you know of his concerns? Perhaps about the estate's finances or its sale?" Lady Eleanor, voice trembling. I knew he was troubled, Mr. Poirot, but he kept such matters from me. The sale was his decision, not mine. I knew nothing of letters or threats. Sound effects. The faint sob of Lady Eleanor, the rustle of her gown. Narrator. Poirot's eyes linger on Ridley, who has not spoken, his silence a fortress. The detective steps closer, holding up the unsigned letter. Poirot, direct, unyielding. Monsieur Ridley, this letter speaks of secrets and the estate's sale. Your name is tied to the accounts, to discrepancies Lord Reginald noted. Did you write this, or do you know who did? Mr. Ridley, gruff, defiant. I wrote no such thing, Mr. Poirot. My accounts are in order, and I served Lord Reginald faithfully. You're chasing shadows. Sound effects. The sharp crack of a log in the fire, the distant howl of wind. Narrator. Poirot steps back, his mind weaving the letters into the tapestry of clues. The vial, the glass fragment, the floral-scented poison, the shadowy figure. The correspondence reveals a manner rife with tension, where ambition, rejection, and fear collided. The Orchis mortifera remains the linchpin, its poison requiring expertise that points to Hammond. But Ridley's financial secrets and Lady Eleanor's access cannot be dismissed. Miss Beaumont's cryptic letter suggests hidden knowledge, perhaps of the scandal hinted at in the anonymous note. Poirot to the group, resolute. The letters. They are the voices of your hearts, mes amis. They speak of desperation, of secrets, of betrayal. Poirot will follow their whispers to the killer's door. Sound effects. The soft chime of the clock, the rustle of papers as Poirot pockets them. Narrator. The drawing room is thick with tension. The suspect's face is etched with fear and defiance. The storm outside. Confrontation that will shake the foundations of their carefully constructed facades. The little gray cells are ablaze, and Poirot is poised to expose the cracks in the killer's armor. The truth, like the Orchis mortifera itself, is beautiful, yet dangerous, and it is about to bloom. Sound effects. The creak of a glass door opening, the soft rustle of leaves, and the faint trickle of a fountain in the conservatory. Narrator. The conservatory is a world unto itself, its glass walls fogged with condensation, the air humid and fragrant with the scent of orchids. The Orchis mortifera, its deep purple petals glowing under its glass dome, stands as the silent epicenter of the crime. Candlelight flickers, casting long shadows across the stone floor where Lord Reginald's body still lies, now covered with a sheet, awaiting the delayed police. The suspects, Lady Eleanor Ashford, Dr. Victor Hammond, Miss Clara Beaumont, and Mr. Thomas Ridley, stand in a tense semicircle, their faces etched with apprehension. Hercule Poirot, immaculate in his tailored suit, stands before them, his eyes sharp and unyielding, the vial and glass fragment from the crime scene tucked safely in his pocket. Poirot, commanding, his voice resonant with authority. Mes amis, we stand where Lord Reginald drew his last breath, poisoned by a toxin most rare, derived from this very orchid. The Orchis mortifera is no mere flower. It is the weapon of a killer among us. Tonight, Poirot will recreate the moment of the crime. And the truth, it will reveal itself. Sound effects. Gasps from the group, the soft clink of a wine glass being placed on a table. Narrator. Poirot gestures to a small table near the Orchis mortifera, where a decanter and several wine glasses have been arranged. mirroring the setup of the fatal toast. He holds up the vial, its clear liquid glinting in the candlelight, and the glass fragment, its jagged edge a silent accusation. The suspects shift uncomfortably, their eyes darting between the props and Poirot's unflinching gaze. "Your future." Dr. Hammond, frantic. "No, Mr. Poirot, I studied the Orchis mortifera, yes, but I never extracted its poison. I was in the study, not here, when the toast was made. I swear I had no part in this." Sound effects. A sharp protest from Hammond, the creak of a wicker chair as he leans back. Narrator. Poirot's eyes narrow, noting the botanist's desperation but also his proximity to the conservatory via the study's door. He turns to Lady Eleanor, whose composure is crumbling, her sapphire gown trembling as she grips the edge of the table. Her frequent visits to the conservatory make her a plausible suspect, and Poirot presses her gently but relentlessly. Poirot, gentle but insistent. "Madame Ashford, you are often here, with your husband, among these orchids. The sale of the estate threatened your world. Did you, in a moment of despair, use your access to this deadly flower to stop him?" Lady Eleanor, voice trembling, tears welling. "I loved Reginald, Mr. Poirot, despite our differences. I was in the library, not here when the toast was made. I could never do such a thing, I couldn't." Sound effects. A soft sob, the faint clink of her pearls as she clutches them. Narrator. Poirot's gaze softens, but his mind remains sharp, noting the sincerity in her tears but also the possibility of calculated grief. He turns to Miss Clara Beaumont, whose auburn curls frame a face now pale, her earlier boldness replaced by a wary tension. Her presence in the garden, so close to the conservatory, places her at the scene, and Poirot's questions test her resolve. Poirot, smiling faintly, probing. "Mademoiselle Beaumont, you were in the garden, oui, but the glass doors, they are transparent. Did you see the wine being poured, or perhaps someone near the decanter? Your letter spoke of secrets. Did they drive you to act?" Miss Beaumont, firm but shaken. "I saw nothing, Mr. Poirot. I was outside, away from the toast. My letter was personal, not a motive for murder. I had no reason to harm Red Toast. You have no proof, only suspicions." Sound effects. The sharp crack of Ridley's voice, the faint creak of the floor as he shifts. Narrator. The tension in the conservatory is palpable. The suspect's voice is rising in a cacophony of protests. Suddenly, Miss Beaumont sways, her hand clutching her chest as she collapses onto a wicker chair, her breath coming in short gasps. The group gasps, and Dr. Hammond rushes to her side, his nervous hands fumbling for a pulse. Dr. Hammond, alarmed. "She's fainted. It's the shock, the strain. Someone fetch water." Sound effects. The clatter of a glass as a servant hurries forward, the soft murmur of concern. Narrator. Poirot remains unruffled, his eyes darting between the suspects as he notes their reactions. Lady Eleanor's tears flow freely, but her gaze is fixed on Miss Beaumont with a strange intensity. Dr. Hammond's concern seems genuine, but his proximity to the Orchis mortifera during the evening lingers in Poirot's mind. Ridley steps forward, his authority reasserting itself as he orders the servant to act, but his eyes avoid Poirot's scrutiny. The detective kneels beside Miss Beaumont, his fingers gently checking her wrist, confirming she is merely overwhelmed, not poisoned. Poirot, calm, reassuring. "Mademoiselle, you are safe. The truth, it is heavy, but it will not harm you. Rest, and let Poirot continue." Sound effects. The soft splash of water as a servant brings a glass, the faint rustle of leaves as the conservatory settles. Narrator. As Miss Beaumont recovers, sipping water with trembling hands, Poirot returns to the table, picking up the decanter. He reenacts the toast, pouring wine into a glass, his movements deliberate as he watches the suspects' faces. He notes the exact spot where Lord Reginald stood, the angle of the decanter, the proximity of the Orchis mortifera. The poison, he deduces, was added moments before the toast, requiring a swift and subtle hand. The shadowy figure seen by the maid, the vial, and the glass fragment all point to a calculated act. The suspects, but the killer remains hidden, their mask intact. Poirot, to himself, softly. The truth, it is like the orchid, delicate, yet it cannot be hidden forever. The confrontation, it has stirred the waters, and soon the ripples will reveal the stone. Sound effects. The faint trickle of the fountain, the rustle of leaves as a breeze stirs. Narrator. Poirot steps back, his eyes scanning the conservatory one last time. The Orchis mortifera looms large, its beauty a stark reminder of its deadly potential. The suspects, shaken by the reenactment, exchange uneasy glances, their defenses fraying. Lady Eleanor's tears, Hammond's panic, Beaumont's collapse, and Ridley's defiance all add to the puzzle. But Poirot knows the answer lies in the details. The moment of the toast, the hand that slipped the poison, the motive that drove it. The police, still delayed by the storm, leave Poirot as the sole arbiter of justice, and he is determined to press forward. Poirot, to the group, resolute. Mes amis, the killer is here, among us. The little gray cells they see through the shadows. Return to the drawing room, and Poirot will continue to unravel this mystery. Sound effects. The soft creak of the conservatory door, footsteps fading, the relentless patter of rain. Narrator. The conservatory falls silent once more, save for the fountain's gentle trickle and the storm's distant murmur. Poirot remains, his mind racing, the clues aligning like stars in a constellation. The vial, the letters, the alibis, the shadowy figure. The confrontation has exposed vulnerabilities, but the killer's identity remains just out of reach. Dear listener, what have you gleaned from this tense encounter? The killer in the Orchid Conservatory is closer to being unmasked, and Hercule Poirot's relentless pursuit of truth will not falter. Chapter 8. The second clue. Narrator. Mysterious, with a tone of quiet discovery. Dear listener. Blooms. Candlelight flickers, casting eerie shadows across the stone floor where Lord Reginald's body, now removed by the staff, once lay. The Orchis mortifera, its purple petals glowing under its glass dome, seems to pulse with silent menace. Hercule Poirot, his suit as impeccable as ever, moves with the precision of a cat, his eyes scanning every shelf, every vine, for a clue overlooked in the chaos of the initial investigation. The vial, the glass fragment, and the letters from the study are tucked safely in his pocket. But he senses the puzzle is incomplete. Poirot, musing, his voice low and precise. The crime, it is like a painting, no? The brushstrokes are there, but the full picture, it requires one more color. Somewhere in this conservatory, the killer has left a trace. Sound effects. The soft scrape of a gloved hand against wood, the faint rustle of foliage. Narrator. Poirot begins his search near the Orchis mortifera. It stand a focal point of the crime. He recalls the scratch on the shelf, the vial hidden behind a cluster of blooms, and the glass fragment buried in the soil. His gloved fingers trace the edges of the stand, probing for anything out of place. The humid air clings to his skin, but his focus is unwavering. He notices a faint irregularity in the base of a nearby shelf, a panel slightly ajar, barely perceptible in the dim light. With a gentle push, the panel gives way, revealing a hidden compartment no larger than a book. Narrator. Inside, Poirot finds a small syringe, its needle glinting faintly, a trace of clear liquid lingering in its chamber. He holds it to the light, noting the same floral scent as the vial, a match for the poison that killed Lord Reginald. The discovery sends a spark through his mind, for a syringe suggests a method more precise than the wine. Perhaps a backup plan, their hinges well oiled, allowing silent movement. He steps outside briefly, the cool night air a sharp contrast to the conservatory's humidity. The garden is dark, the roses barely visible in the moonlight. But Poirot notices a faint footprint in the damp earth, partially obscured by the rain. It is small, delicate, perhaps a woman's shoe, or a man's with a narrow foot. He marks the spot mentally, knowing it may tie to Beaumont's alibi or the mysterious figure. Poirot, musing. The garden. It speaks, even in silence. A footprint, a shadow, a syringe. All pieces of the same puzzle, no? Sound effects. The soft crunch of gravel underfoot, the distant hoot of an owl. Narrator. Returning to the conservatory, Poirot's attention shifts to the fountain. Its gentle trickle a constant presence. He examines its base, noting a faint residue on the stone, a powdery substance, barely visible, that matches the color of the orchid's soil. He scrapes a sample with his handkerchief, suspecting it may be a trace of the poison's preparation. The killer, he deduces, worked here, perhaps distilling the toxin under the guise of tending the plants. Dr. Victor Hammond's expertise makes him a likely candidate. But Lady Eleanor Ashford's frequent visits and Mr. Thomas Ridley's authority over the estate cannot be dismissed. Narrator. Poirot's thoughts are interrupted by a soft sound, a creak from the direction of the manor's hallway. He moves silently to the glass door, peering into the darkness, but sees no one. The sound, however, confirms his suspicion that someone is watching, perhaps aware of his discoveries. He returns to the conservatory, his resolve hardened. The syringe is a second clue, a bridge between the poison's preparation and its delivery. But it raises new questions. Was it meant to be used, or to mislead? And who had the skill to wipe it clean of prints? Knowledge of syringes, or their use in botany. Lady Eleanor's eyes widen, her fingers clutching her pearls, but she insists she never saw such a thing in the conservatory. Miss Beaumont, recovering from her earlier faint, watches Poirot with a mix of curiosity and dread, denying any involvement. Mr. Ridley's jaw tightens, his voice gruff as he dismisses the syringe as irrelevant, claiming it could belong to any gardener. Dr. Hammond, flustered. A syringe? I've never used such a thing for the orchids. It's absurd, Mr. Poirot. I'm a scientist, not a murderer. Lady Eleanor, voice trembling. I don't understand, Mr. Poirot. Why would a syringe be there? I only tended to Reginald's plants, never anything like that. Miss Beaumont, calm but cautious. I was in the garden, Mr. Poirot. I wouldn't know about syringes or poisons. You're looking in the wrong place. Mr. Ridley, gruff. It's probably some gardener's tool, misplaced. You're making mountains out of molehills, Mr. Poirot. Sound effects. The crackle of the dying fire. The faint howl of wind outside. Narrator. Poirot's eyes gleam, noting the varied reactions. Hammond's panic. Eleanor's confusion. Beaumont's deflection. Ridley's dismissal. The syringe, he realizes, is a deliberate plant, meant to mislead or to point to a specific suspect. Its clean surface suggests a killer who planned meticulously, erasing traces of their identity. He recalls the footprint in the garden, the powdery residue by the fountain, and the maid's shadowy figure, each clue converging on the conservatory's secrets. Narrator. Poirot steps back, addressing the group with a calm that belies the intensity of his thoughts. Poirot, resolute. This syringe, it is no accident. It was hidden, wiped clean, placed where only one with knowledge of this conservatory would think to conceal it. The killer, they are among us, and their mask, it manner the previous night. Could this be the key? Or another misdirection? The police, still delayed by flooded roads, leave Poirot as the sole pursuer of truth, and he is determined to press on. Poirot, to himself, softly. The clues, they multiply like the orchids, each one a petal in the flower of truth. The syringe. It is a bold move, but Poirot, he is bolder. Sound effects. The faint creak of a floorboard, the soft drip of rain outside. Narrator. The conservatory's secrets are unraveling, but the killer remains hidden, their cunning matched only by Poirot's persistence. The syringe is a second clue, a bridge between preparation and execution, but its purpose, whether used or planted, remains unclear. The suspects, shaken by the confrontation, are on edge, their masks fraying. Dear listener, what have you noticed in this latest discovery? The killer in the Orchid Conservatory is closer to being unmasked, and Hercule Poirot's relentless pursuit will not falter. Chapter 9. The Final Gathering. Narrator, grave, with an air of impending revelation. Dear listener, the hour grows late at Ashford Manor, where the storm has softened to a mournful whisper, mirroring the quiet dread that grips its inhabitants. The conservatory, scene of Lord Reginald Ashford's poisoning, stands as a silent witness to a crime that has woven a web of suspicion around the guests. Hercule Poirot, the master detective, has gathered clues, vials, letters, a syringe, and fleeting glimpses of a shadowy figure, each one a thread in the intricate tapestry of murder. Now, as midnight tolls, he assembles the suspects for a final gathering in the drawing room, where the weight of evidence will force the truth to surface. The little gray cells are alight, and Poirot is poised to unveil the killer hiding among the orchid's shadows. Sound effects. The soft creak of a door, footsteps echoing on polished wood, and the rustle of fabric as the suspects settle into their seats. Narrator. The drawing room is a study in tension. The alibis. They form a puzzle that Poirot has solved. Tonight, the killer will be revealed. For the little gray cells, they do not fail. Sound effects. Gasps. The clatter of a teacup as Hammond sets it down. The faint crackle of the fire. Narrator. Poirot begins by laying out the evidence, his voice steady and deliberate, each word a step toward the truth. He holds up the vial, its floral-scented contents a match for the poison in Lord Reginald's wine. The glass fragment, found near the Orchis mortifera, suggests a hasty act, perhaps part of the vial's cap. The syringe, hidden in a secret compartment, points to a calculated plan, its clean surface a testament to the killer's cunning. The letters, Hammond's threats, Beaumont's regrets, the anonymous warning, and Ridley's financial discrepancies reveal a manner rife with tension. The shadowy figure seen by the maid, the footprint in the garden, and the powdery residue by the fountain complete the picture. Poirot, calm but piercing. The poison was administered during the toast, a moment of distraction when all eyes were on Lord Reginald. The decanter was clean, but his glass was laced with the toxin. Someone moved swiftly, unseen, to deliver death. Let us examine the alibis once more. Sound effects. The rustle of Poirot's notebook. A nervous cough from the group. Narrator. Poirot turns to Lady Eleanor, whose pale face is etched with grief, though her eyes flicker with something deeper, fear, perhaps, or guilt. Her alibi places her in the library, but the windows face the conservatory, offering a view of the fatal moment. Poirot, gentle but probing. Madame Ashford, you claim you were reading, yet the library's windows look upon the conservatory. Did you see the toast? Or perhaps the shadowy figure the maid described? Lady Eleanor, voice trembling but firm. I saw nothing, Mr. Poirot. I was lost in my book, trying to escape the evening strain. I only heard the scream and ran to the conservatory. Sound effects. Her eyes are wary, watching Poirot like a chess player anticipating a checkmate. Poirot, smiling faintly. Mademoiselle Beaumont, you were in the garden, but the glass doors offer a clear view. Your letter spoke of secrets. Did you see the wine being poured, or perhaps act to protect those secrets? Miss Beaumont, coolly but cautious. I was outside, Mr. Poirot, away from the toast. I saw no one tampering with the wine. My letter was personal, not a motive for murder. Sound effects. The rustle of her dress. A faint sigh. Narrator. Poirot's gaze shifts to Mr. Ridley, whose stern posture remains unbroken, though his clenched fists betray tension. The financial discrepancies in Lord Reginald's note point to him, and Poirot's tone grows sharp. Poirot, unyielding. Monsieur Ridley, Lord Reginald planned to confront you about irregularities in the accounts. Your authority gave you access to the conservatory. Did you poison the wine to silence him? Mr. Ridley, gruff, defiant. I was with the staff, Mr. Poirot. The accounts are clean, and I had no reason to harm Lord Reginald. Your clues prove nothing. Sound effects. The sharp crack of Ridley's voice, the faint howl of wind outside. Narrator. Poirot steps back, his eyes scanning the group, their denials a chorus of desperation. He reconstructs the timeline. The toast occurred at 9 o'clock, moments after the guests entered the conservatory. The decanter was poured by a servant, but the glass was handed to Lord Reginald by someone nearby. The shadowy figure, seen by the maid, moved near the doors, suggesting a quick act of tampering. The syringe, Poirot deduces, was a red herring, planted to mislead. Its clean surface a deliberate act to avoid fingerprints. Poirot, resolute, addressing the group. The killer used the toast as cover, slipping the poison into the glass, not the decanter. The Orchis mortifera's toxin required expertise, and the syringe, it was a deception to point to Dr. Hammond, but for him to move unnoticed. Yet, Lady Eleanor's frequent visits and Hammond's expertise cannot be dismissed, and Beaumont's proximity to the garden keeps her in the frame. Poirot, to Ridley, sharp. Monsieur Ridley, the accounts were not clean. Lord Reginald's note proves it. Did you use your access to the conservatory to prepare the poison, to protect your theft? Mr. Ridley, angry but controlled. You're grasping, Mr. Poirot. I manage the estate, not its orchids. I was with the staff, not poisoning wine. Sound effects. The crackle of the fire. A sharp protest from Ridley. Narrator. Poirot turns to Hammond, whose panic has reached a breaking point, his hands shaking as he removes his spectacles. Poirot, probing. Dr. Hammond, the syringe points to you, yet it is too perfect, non? Did you plant it to deflect suspicion, or did another use your knowledge to frame you? Dr. Hammond, near tears. I didn't touch it, Mr. Poirot. Someone's trying to make me look guilty. I'm not the killer. Sound effects. A sob from Hammond. The rustle of fabric as he slumps back. Narrator. Poirot's eyes flicker to Lady Eleanor, whose tears have dried, her face now a mask of resolve. Her alibi is weak, her motive strong, but her grief seems genuine. Miss Beaumont, watching silently, remains an enigma. Her garden alibi fragile yet unproven. Poirot, to the group, resolute. The motive, it is clear. The opportunity, it was seized. The method, it is the key. The killer is here, and Poirot sees through the mist. One final piece and the truth will bloom. Sound effects. The soft chime of the clock, the faint drip of rain outside. Narrator. The drawing room is a crucible of fear. The suspects' faces pale and drawn. Poirot's words have tightened the net, but the killer remains hidden, their masks still intact. The clues, the vial, the syringe, the letters, the footprint, point to a calculated act, but the final piece eludes him. The police, delayed by the storm, bloom like the orchids themselves. The little gray cells have triumphed, and the killer in the orchid conservatory will be revealed. Sound effects. The soft chime of a clock striking 1. The rustle of fabric as the suspects shift nervously, and the crackle of the fire. The drawing room is a crucible of tension, its burgundy drapes and polished mahogany steeped in the weight of impending revelation. Lady Eleanor Ashford sits on a velvet settee, her sapphire gown crumpled, her pearl necklace glinting as she clutches a handkerchief, her eyes red-rimmed but resolute. Dr. Victor Hammond slumps in an armchair, his spectacles fogged, his hands trembling with exhaustion. Miss Clara Beaumont leans against a bookcase, her auburn curls framing a face now pale, her defiance tempered by dread. Mr. Thomas Ridley stands by the fireplace, his stern posture fraying, his clenched fists betraying the strain of scrutiny. Hercule Poirot stands at the center, his immaculate suit a beacon of order, his notebook closed, his eyes blazing with the certainty of truth. Poirot, commanding, his voice resonant. Mes amis, the time has come. Lord Reginald Ashford was poisoned by a toxin from the Orchis mortifera, delivered in his wine during a toast. The clues, the vial, the syringe, the letters, the footprint, the shadowy figure, they point to one among you. Poirot has seen through the mist, and the killer, they can hide no longer. Sound effects, gasps, the clatter of a teacup as Hammond sets it down, the faint creak of a chair. Poirot begins by laying out the evidence, his voice steady, each word a chisel carving away at the killer's facade. The vial, found near the Orchis mortifera, contained the floral-scented poison that matched the wine's residue. The glass fragment, buried in the soil, was part of the vial's cap, broken in haste. The syringe, hidden in a secret compartment, was a deliberate misdirection. Its clean surface meant to point to Dr. Hammond's expertise. The letters revealed motives. You act to save your home. Lady Eleanor, I was in the library, Mr. Poirot. I loved Reginald, despite our disagreements. I would never poison him. I couldn't. Sound effects. A soft sob, the faint clink of her pearls. Narrator. Poirot's eyes soften, but he moves to Dr. Hammond, whose panic has been a recurring note. His expertise with the orchid and his threatening letter make him a prime suspect. Poirot, sharp. Dr. Hammond, your knowledge of the Orchis mortifera is unmatched. Your letter demanded funding with hints of blackmail. Did you plant the syringe to deflect suspicion, or was it your tool? Dr. Hammond, frantic. I didn't do it, Mr. Poirot. The syringe isn't mine. I was in the study. Someone's framing me, using my work against me. Sound effects. A nervous gasp, the creak of a chair as Hammond slumps. Narrator. Poirot's gaze shifts to Miss Beaumont, whose garden alibi places her close to the crime scene. Her cryptic letter and sharp mind suggest hidden knowledge. Poirot, smiling faintly. Mademoiselle Beaumont, you were in the garden, oui, but the glass doors offered a clear view. Did you see the killer? Or were you the one to slip the poison into the wine? Miss Beaumont, firm but shaken. I saw nothing, Mr. Poirot. I was outside, away from the toast. My letter was personal, not a motive for murder. Sound effects. The rustle of her dress, a faint sigh. Narrator. Poirot's eyes finally settle on Mr. Thomas Ridley, whose stern demeanor has cracked under the weight of scrutiny. The financial discrepancies in Lord Reginald's note and the anonymous letter threatening exposure point to him. Poirot, unyielding. Monsieur Ridley, Lord Reginald discovered your embezzlement. His note spoke of confronting you. Your authority gave you access to the conservatory, and your knowledge of the estate's routines allowed you to move unseen. Did you poison the wine to silence him? Mr. Ridley, gruff, defiant. You have no proof, Mr. Poirot. I was with the Hammond, whose expertise you exploited. Sound effects. Gasps. The clatter of a chair as Ridley steps back. The faint chime of the clock. Ridley's face pales, his stern facade crumbling. The room is silent. The suspect's frozen as Poirot continues, his voice a steady drumbeat of truth. Poirot, relentless. The maid's shadowy figure was you, moving near the conservatory doors. The footprint in the garden, small for a man, matches your narrow boots, which Poirot observed. The powdery residue by the fountain was from your distillation, done in secret. You wiped the syringe clean, but you could not erase the truth from Poirot's little gray cells. Sound effects. The sharp intake of Ridley's breath, the soft sob of Lady Eleanor. Ridley's defiance collapses, his shoulders sagging as he sinks into a chair. His voice, once gruff, is now a broken whisper. I didn't mean for it to come to this. Reginald was going to ruin me, expose everything. The estate's funds. I took only what I needed, but he found out. I couldn't let him destroy me. The orchid. It was so easy once I learned from Hammond's notes. Sound effects. The clink of handcuffs as a servant, summoned by Poirot, prepares to restrain Ridley. The room erupts in murmurs, Lady Eleanor's tears flowing freely, Hammond's relief palpable, and Beaumont's eyes wide with shock. Poirot remains calm, his work complete. He gestures to the servant, who has alerted the groundskeeper to fetch the police, now en route despite the storm's remnants. Poirot, calm, resolute. The little gray cells, they do not fail. Justice, she is served, and the orchids, they may bloom in peace once more. Sound effects. The soft creak of a carriage arriving, footsteps approaching, the faint clink of handcuffs. The police, delayed no longer, enter the drawing room, their heavy boots echoing on the wood. Ridley, his head bowed, effects. The soft clatter of carriage wheels departing, the faint rustle of rain ceasing. Dear listener, another mystery has been solved by the inimitable Hercule Poirot. The killer in the Orchid Conservatory has been unmasked, his motives laid bare, his crime exposed. Did you follow the clues? The vial, the syringe, the letters, the shadowy figure, to the same conclusion? The orchids of Ashford Manor will bloom again, their beauty untainted by death. Join us next time for another tale of deception and deduction, where Poirot's little gray cells will once more light the way. Until then, keep your own gray cells sharp, and beware the secrets hidden in beauty.